Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist and a student of natural law, and I'm going through um, the book called On Conflict and Consensus by C.T. Butler and Amy Rothstein. And I just finished going through all the principles that are required to have formal consensus, because on page 6 of the document, which I enclose in the description, Um, it says here, before a group decides to use formal consensus, it must honestly assess its ability to honor the principles described in Chapter 3. So I went through all of those principles. If the principles described in this book are not already present, or if the group is not willing to work to create them, then formal consensus will not be possible. Any group which wants to adopt formal consensus needs to give considerable attention to the underlying principles which support consensus and help the process operate smoothly. This is not to say each and every one of the principles described herein must be adopted by every group, or that each group cannot add its own principles specific to its goals, but rather each group must be very clear about the foundation of principles or common purposes they choose before they attempt the formal consensus decision-making process. So, our freedom groups have come together because we are feeling our freedoms being taken away by the government. And so we're coming together, I would say, out of panic and fear of the future, and trying to um, shore ourselves against what we perceive as coming. And then we are just kind of, what I've noticed anyway, is that we're in a panic, and or we're either that, or we are just trying to get together and be face to face within 6 feet of each other without masks on and have fun. And I don't know that we have spent the time to ask ourselves what our true purpose is as a group and come up with foundation principles. But it is necessary to do that at some point if we are going to really take some action together that's going to make a real difference in our lives. It goes on. Formal consensus is the least violent decision-making process. Traditional nonviolence theory holds that the use of power to dominate is violent and undesirable. Nonviolence expects people to use their power to persuade without deception, coercion, or malice, using truth, creativity, logic, respect, and love. Majority rule voting process and parliamentary procedure both accept and even encourage the use of power to dominate others. The goal is the winning of the vote, often regardless of another choice, which might be in the best interest of the whole group. The will of the majority supersedes the concerns and desires of the minority. This is inherently violent. Consensus strives to take into account everyone's concerns and resolve them before any decision is made. Most importantly, this process encourages an environment in which everyone is respected and all contributions are valued. As I have said in the past, I'm not crazy about the word nonviolence. However, in our culture where everything is violent, I think it is important to use that term. And at this point, I think it would be wise for us to do some nonviolent communication groups. I also had mentioned this prior, which I also think it's time that we maybe do some trauma work as a group together. I know for myself that I have not fully grieved the loss of my life that I had before 2020. And I think it would be extremely powerful if we looked into doing some group work, and I'm going to investigate that and probably put it forth at a separate time. But I'm just putting it out there because what I see on social media, like we have these groups where we meet in person and we act one way towards each other, and then when we talk to each other on social media, it's as though the subconscious is the social media, and when we're face to face, we're in the conscious. And I just feel like it would be so fantastic if we would get together and work through some of our grief and trauma over losing our families and our friends, our relationships, our beliefs, our understandings 2 years ago. Together, I think we would bond. And then we might just from that develop some trust and respect and nonviolence, which we could use for the basis of these principles that we're going to be needing. So I'm going to reread this. Traditional nonviolence theory holds the use of power to dominate is violent and undesirable. So, the thing about it is we are each individual beings under natural law, and under natural law, there is no authority other than the creator and natural law itself. And so when we use parliamentary procedure or majority rule, we are creating a power differential between the majority and the minority. And we are creating an authority, which is inherently a violation, which is, the root word of the word violence, of natural law. And we are using force, or rather, we are using violence to push the other smaller group down. And that creates a dictatorship, which is where we are at now. So we're going to have to learn how to treat each other differently in our freedom groups if we're going to have something different. And there's no way in hell I have any desire to move to a remote location with a group of people that it's just going to be another mini version of what we have here in the city. I'm just going to stay here in the city and fight against what's coming, what's happening, because I don't have any desire to live off the grid with some mini dictators who haven't learned this. So the exit and build idea is great, except if you're not going to use a different way of communicating, what's the point? Nonviolence expects people to use their power to persuade without deception, coercion, or malice, using truth, creativity, logic, respect, and love. That means in our groups where we're making decisions, like I was at a group a few weeks ago, and we were presenting in front of the room. We've been kind of trained to be entertained by someone standing up in front of the room instead of taking responsibility and ownership for that person is just one member of the group who has an area of expertise that they're going to present to us, but they're just one member of the group. Like I got up and made a presentation, and I was met with somebody made a joke, which that to me, that is malice, or it is a form of coercion, because the person is stealing my time by making light of what I'm presenting. And I'm just one member of the group, which shows me that in that group of people, there are so many people who are traumatized by everything we've gone through, from being children up to being adults. And then, the latest bunch of horse shit that we just went through, that we throw each other under the bus just to get a little relief from our own tension that we experience when we are receiving new information. We've just maybe we need to do some kind of psychodrama in which we act out how we are overwhelmed by new information, and we can't take any more new information in, instead of pretending that we're interested in new information when we're not actually. We just want to make fun of whoever's getting up there. I don't know that we have the flexibility in our spirits right now to use truth, creativity, logic, respect, and love. I mean, I see it on social media. I just saw it on social media tonight where there's one person particularly who has become the designated name caller, and other people are starting to stand up to that person. But we all know that that person is injured and in pain, but they aren't, it's all on social media. So there's really nothing we can do about it unless we get together in person and get vulnerable with each other. Majority rule, voting process, and parliamentary procedure both accept and even encourage the use of power to dominate others. It's true. I mean, parliamentary procedure, I don't even understand it. So there's people who have maybe a photographic memory or logical brains that can use parliamentary procedure, but I will be relegated to the minority because I won't be able to concentrate on the procedure because it's so regimented, and you have to be one of those people who is a left brainer to be able to use it. So that creates a division between the logical minds and the artist mind people, the left brain and the right brain people. The goal is the winning of the vote, often regardless of another choice, which might be in the best interest of the whole group. So, in our case, well, like they use parliamentary procedure in all of our cities. Like that's the way they make decisions at city council meetings, et cetera. So they have law enforcement to enforce their decisions. But in our groups, we don't have any way to enforce our decisions. So if we don't have consensus in our decision-making processes, any of the decisions that we make, if we make a decision where there's a huge minority, like say, what would it be? 50 or 48%. I'm not gonna be able to do this because I can't add, but where there's a huge, like it's almost 50%, 50-50. The people who were in the minority are not going to participate in the decision because it's so almost divided. So it doesn't work for us. We need consensus. We need to agree on the decisions so that most of the people will participate in the change. If we take the time to get consensus of the group, and in the group participation, we're not using violence or well, anything that's not focused on getting a good solution for the group could be considered violence, even if it's like passive aggressive, especially if it's passive aggressive, which is a big way a lot of us are acting right now. If we're just not going to get anywhere with it, and maybe that's what we want to do. Maybe we just want to throw our hands in the air and say, screw it, this is never going to work, and then storm off to our corners. But the thing is that that's what they want. The globalists want us to have given up on getting along, and it isn't impossible. It just requires patience. The will of the majority supersedes the concerns and desires of the minority. This is inherently violent. Why is it violent? It's violent because it's two polarized groups. And again, under natural law, which is discoverable. It's not a choice. There is no authority. So it's violent because it's basically saying, my way, it's got to be my way. I'm the authority. And it's not taking the time necessary to work things out. It's also denying the fact that we're all connected. And when one of us is harmed, all of us are harmed. Or when one of us is hurt, all of us are hurt. It's that divide and conquer concept. But if everyone's connected, there is no such thing as divide and conquer. You may feel like you're the winning side for a while, but it just means that the side that was supposedly conquered gets thrown into the subconscious and will be in the shadow and cause extreme problems later on. Consensus strives to take into account everyone's concerns and resolve them before any decision is made. This requires patience, but it also acknowledges that we are all connected, and when one or several, when the minority is dissatisfied, we will all be dissatisfied, even though it doesn't seem that way at the moment. Most importantly, this process encourages an environment in which everyone is respected and all contributions are valued. I just recommend that between now and the next video that I make, you do the exercise of asking yourself if in your own family, maybe just take it down to your own family. Is everyone's point of view respected and are all contributions valued? Or you could say to yourself, if you live by yourself, you could say, are all of me, do I value all of myself? Are all of my contributions valued, or do I deny certain parts of myself and throw those parts into the shadow? And then, take it to social media and ask yourself when you're interacting on social media, whether you are respecting each person and valuing each person's contribution, or at the office, or in the family, or in every social situation, on the road, in your car. Is every person respected? Am I respecting every person? And am I respecting every person's contribution on the road? It might be a cool learning experience.